All right, let's get right into it. We're heading to the very top of the world, a place where a long, quiet era of peace is ending, and fast. For a long time, the Arctic was all about scientific research and countries working together. But now, well, as the ice is melting, a very different kind of Cold War is starting to heat up. You know that quote from a former US ambassador to the Arctic? It just hits you, right? It perfectly captures this huge shift that's happening as we speak. The whole idea that the Arctic could somehow stay above the world's problems, that's just not the reality anymore.
So, to really get why that innocence is gone, we need to talk about this concept, this idea that basically ran the region for decades. It's what made the Arctic totally different from anywhere else on the planet.
Yeah, Arctic exceptionalism. The core belief was pretty simple. The high north would always have low tension. It was kind of like a gentleman's agreement between the superpowers. This pristine, icy world was just too important for humanity to let geopolitics mess it all up. But today, that idea is completely shattered. With global conflicts freezing diplomacy, the main group for cooperation up there, the Arctic Council, is basically paralyzed. And that has created a massive power vacuum. And into that vacuum, the world's major powers are rushing in. Not with handshakes, but with military hardware and some pretty big national ambitions. So what's the big pull? What is dragging the world's great powers into this freezing cold frontier? Well, it's not just about planting flags. It's about what's hiding under the ice and the brand new shortcuts opening up across the top of the world. And it really boils down to two huge things. First, let's talk about what's under the ice. See, as the polar ice caps retreat, they're uncovering a treasure trove that's been locked away for thousands of years. And just look at that number, 511 billion barrels of oil. To give you some perspective, that's more than the proven reserves of Saudi Arabia and Iraq combined. We are talking about a staggering amount of energy. And it's not just about oil. This is a whole new gold rush for the critical minerals that, frankly, power our entire modern world. We're talking about the key ingredients for literally everything, from the batteries in electric cars to advanced electronics and defense systems. The very foundation of our tech future is buried right there. And what's really fascinating here is how Russia has a near monopoly on some of these key minerals in its Arctic territories. When you control that much of something so critical, it gives you tremendous leverage over the global supply chain. Okay, so that's the treasure under the ice. But the second part of this massive prize, it has to do with the water on top of it. As the ice melts, new, much shorter sea lanes are opening up. And these aren't just minor detours. They're about to completely rewrite the map of global trade. I mean, the difference is just staggering. Take the Northern Sea route. A ship going from Japan to Northern Europe can literally cut its journey by more than half. That's a game changer. So what does that actually mean in dollars and cents? Well, we're talking about massive economic incentives, billions of dollars in potential savings on fuel, not to mention avoiding things like carbon taxes. These routes are becoming pretty much irresistible for shipping companies. So, with trillions of dollars on the line, who are the main players in this new great game on ice? Well, three major powers have really stepped up, and each one has a very clear and very different vision for what the Arctic's future should be. You've got Russia, which is aiming for total economic and military dominance along its huge coastline. Then you have the US and NATO, who are focused on defense and making sure those new sea lanes stay open to everyone. And then you have China, which calls itself a near-Arctic state, pushing its own polar Silk Road to gain influence. Okay, so we know who the players are. Now let's get to the heart of it, how this whole competition is rapidly turning into a direct military standoff. The old days of low tension are being replaced by a serious buildup of military force. This is what Russia's Fortress Arctic strategy looks like in the real world. Moscow isn't just suggesting it controls the Northern Sea route, it's actively enforcing it. They're making foreign warships get permission and take a Russian pilot on board just to pass through. Of course, a move like that doesn't go unanswered. In February 2026, NATO launched a direct counter, Operation Arctic Sentry. And make no mistake, this isn't just another military exercise. It marks a huge shift in NATO's whole strategy for the high north. So what is NATO doing? Well, they're sending a very clear message. For the first time ever, they're putting everything under a single unified command.
They're also ramping up their large-scale military exercises and boosting air and naval patrols all across the region. They're moving from a bunch of individual efforts to one unified and much more powerful front. And that brings us to Greenland. Just think about that phrase for a second. A stationary aircraft carrier. It tells you everything you need to know. Because of its location, it's the perfect spot for missile defense, for monitoring the whole region, which makes it one of the most valuable pieces of real estate in this new geopolitical chess game. But all this stuff, the bases, the patrols, the exercises, that's just what's happening on the surface. There's an even more serious escalation going on in the deep, dark, and freezing cold waters of the Arctic Ocean. You see, that thick ice cover, it makes submarines almost impossible to detect. It's the perfect cloak of invisibility. And that has turned the Arctic into the ideal hiding place for the most powerful weapons on Earth. This nuclear angle raises the stakes of any potential conflict here to the absolute highest level. So, when you put it all together, what does it all add up to? We've seen cooperation end, a mad dash for resources, and a rapid military build-up. The conclusion is pretty hard to escape. That whole era of high north, low tension is officially over. It's been replaced by a new, frozen front line in this growing global competition. The Arctic isn't the exception anymore. It's now a central stage for the world's great power struggles. And that leaves all of us with one pretty chilling question. As the physical ice up there melts away, the geopolitical ice is hardening. With the ice gone and tensions frozen solid, what happens when they finally break?